Hello and welcome everyone. This is the first video on the series about the Google Kubernetes Engine Gateway API, and I would like to have a first introductory video talking about what is Gateway API, why is it there, and actually try to simplify it for you that you understand what is it for and how you can use it. When you start looking into the Gateway API, there is a Gateway API specification and also a lot of documentation on Google side. If you look at the specification, it will go into different things like talking about separate personas, how the gateway is configured, integration with service mesh, etc., etc. Actually, in my opinion, all of this is, well, it's very relevant, it's very interesting to read. However, when we talk about the actual configuration of the gateways in Google Cloud Platform, we can throw this all out and make it much simpler, right? So if I go to the diagram I prepared, basically what gateway gonna create for you is a load balancer, and that load balancer will depend on the gateway class, right? So every gateway is created following the selection of the gateway class, and the gateway class selection is your decision ultimately, depending on the architecture you want to implement. So now you want to ask yourself two questions. The first one, do I want single cluster or multi-cluster setup? So let's say you have several regional or several zonal clusters, or you just want to have one cluster, right? So you answer this question, you have multi-cluster, let's say, or you have single cluster. The next question is, do I want to do global or regional gateway class, right? So which one do I want? Let's say we want a single cluster that's going to be a simpler use case, and we want to have, now, the simpler one going to be here, global one, because that's the normal use case when you want to enable external traffic to your application from the external users inside your Kubernetes cluster, right? So the simplest use case is going to be single cluster, global load balancer. And in this case, you have two different gateway classes. The first one is GKE L7, which is stands for the layer 7 of OSI model. So it's the HTTP HTTPS layer, right? And then we have GXLB, which is basically standing for global, external, and LB is for load balancer. The second class here is GKE L7, and it say global external managed. Again, it's a load balancer. If you provision gateway, it's going to create a load balancer behind it. On the other hand, for the single cluster, you might decide that, okay, I don't need a global external, I want to have a regional. And for regional, you can have an internal load balancer, which is going to be replying only to internal traffic on an internal IP addresses, right? And this one is here. This is regional internal load balancer. Or you can have a regional external one, but in this case, you can only have either regional cluster, right? Or you basically you don't have redundancy for this load balancer. It's deployed in one region. Now, in case of multi-cluster, you basically have the same selection, but the service which you're gonna provide, so this gateway is gonna be able to route the traffic between multiple clusters inside a fleet, right? So in Google, there is a concept of fleet, which enables multi-cluster services, and that enables to traffic to go between different clusters. And in this case, you'll have to deploy these multi-cluster gateways in a so-called config cluster. That's a central cluster which you need to select when you establish a fleet. And from these config cluster, the gateway will be able to see all other clusters. You can have 3, 4, 5 clusters inside your fleet, and it will be able to route the traffic there. Again, the most simple use case here is when you have the global external load balancer. That's a very common use case when you want to enable your end users to access your application, right? The second gateway class here, which is down here, is basically the same one, just got a bit different feature set. If you'd like to see feature set, I will include links to the comparison. It's on the Google documentation between different classes. It's just a small difference between those, right? And on the other hand, you can have multi-cluster gateway, but you can either have a regional internal one. So there's going to be only creating a load balancer, which is going to be internal load balancer, and it will be receiving traffic on internal IP address, on internal network. And you can have a regional external managed multi-cluster, which going to be, again, external one, but it's going to be pinned to one region, so that's going to be a regional load balancer which doesn't have redundancy. And in the case of these two regional load balancers, external ones, you basically sacrificing your availability. In case of single cluster, it's not a big deal, because you're basically saying that I'm running in one region, right? So it's one cluster, it's either regional or zonal. And it's okay to use this one, but in case of the multi-cluster setup, if you're using this regional external managed MC, you're basically saying, okay, my gateway is running inside one region, and if that region is down, your whole networking, so internal networking, gonna be not working. So your end users will not be able to access your services. I want to repeat, and in the next videos, I would go into the details, overviewing all of those classes, how they work, and providing Terraform code for that. But what I want to emphasize that essentially gateway is very simple thing. Every gateway class creating a load balancer, which it programmatically configures depending on the configuration which you basically provide to it using YAML. Like it configures this, the backend services, the network endpoint groups, etc., etc. So the whole thing which is necessary for a load balancer to communicate between the end users and the things inside the Kubernetes cluster. But in the end, very straightforward. Every gateway class creates a load balancer. That load balancer enables traffic from the end users. They can be inside your corporate network or inside internal network, or outside on internet. It enables those users to access your applications inside your clusters, right? In the next videos, I will show how this works on a particular example. I would show different architectures, so how you can enable traffic for external users, how you can enable traffic for internal users, and what can you do in a hybrid setup, what other options are. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that was useful, and have a great day.